Once I started, I was just in a sort of a constant state of shock and revelation, and I couldn't really believe this was happening. And struck me, the more I investigated it, it struck me as such obvious madness that there would be no, oversight and no, guardians or gatekeepers in place, that I just kept thinking at the end of this, everyone's going to be shocked and, this will become a safer procedure, or, everyone will have to agree. I didn't write the book for religious people. I didn't write the book for conservatives. I just wrote it for common sense people who were interested in the number of teenage girls suddenly coming out as transgender. And the number, I can't even tell you how many parents have called me since the book came out, while the book was coming out, telling me that 20, 30, 40% of their, whatever, very high, 15, 20, 30% of their daughter's 7th grade class suddenly decided they were transgender. Sometimes at girls' schools, the boys weren't even relevant. It was at a girls' school, or at least they weren't around. So on the one hand, and then of course in England, the High Court came out. And it came out with a decision that effectively verified everything I had to say in the book. They said
right. That was the case of the detransitioning girl. I mean, I thought 5 years ago, or more, I thought this will all come to an end when these adolescents hit adulthood and start to bring the lawyers into play for everything that was done for them, let's say, when they were teenagers. And that high court case, do you want to just outline that briefly for people?
Sure. A young woman named Kira Bell brought a claim against the Tavistock Gender Clinic in England, in which she said, I was started on these treatments, hormone treatments. I was sure I was transgender. I had never had a childhood history of gender dysphoria, but as a teenager, I was very uncomfortable in my body. And I decided I was transgender. And at 16, I was started on a course of puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones. She eventually went on to have her breasts removed. And she realized as a young woman in her 20s, that she had gone down the wrong path, that none of this had made her any happier, and that she wasn't supposed to be transgender. She was a lesbian. And that was all. And she was very upset that nobody had stopped her. Nobody had exercised any judgment. It had been a celebration only zone from the moment, even from medical professionals and therapists, from the moment she decided she was transgender. And the court looked at this population of teenage girls and was horrified. And if you read the decision, as I have, and written about it, it just came out in December.
Right. But this is new.
They said that it basically, young people under 16 should not be allowed to be giving informed consent. They can't give meaningful consent to doing away with their future fertility. They're children. And there's in no sense is this informed consent for a possibility of a sexual life, because in many cases this may lead to sexual dysfunction. They can't foreclose sexual life, a healthy adult sexual life, and fertility as minors.
Well, even
have any idea.
How many 19-year-old women who claim to not want children have children in the upcoming decade? I don't know the statistics, but I do know that a very large number of 19-year-old women that I knew when I was 19 had decided that they weren't going to have children. And all of the ones that I knew either eventually had children or were very unhappy that they didn't, by the time they had hit their mid-30s. And so
that's right. I mean,
we don't know that much about our future selves. And the question is, under what circumstances we should be allowed to sacrifice them. So
that's right. And that's the problem. It's not that these girls are having these feelings, but that our adults are immediately supplying the irreversible treatments without any medical judgment or differential diagnosis.
Well, you also